Welcome back to another episode of It's Go Time. What was your thoughts on the Olympics this year on the basketball side?
I didn't really watch it that much. It's just a different basketball game in general.
Tell me how. Yeah, I was just about to ask
The
you that on
rules are
the
a little
phone.
more stringent. Like NBA, it's more entertainment based.
Mm-hmm.
They let them get away with a lot of little walks and a lot of little movements, extra steps. Whereas overseas, it's a little more stringent, less
Rigid, more
steps.
rigid.
Yeah, like you got to do the jab step properly. Uh, more movement with the ball, not as much ISO. So it's great for basketball heads, not great for people that are just general trying to watch basketball in general.
Mm.
Entertainment.
Yeah.
Is it a big? I know the US won it, and majority of the players are based here in the NBA. But this change of rules, or these minor things, does it affect them? Do you see that?
That's a great question.
Yeah,
So I flew out to France recently. I was
yeah.
training one of the MVPs out there, Chet. Uh, he was struggling and he can only speak French. And I was trying to assess his skills. And I noticed his jab step was terrible. So I started focusing on that first. And between me, him, and the translator, we're starting to all get irritated. And I'm like, maybe French people are a little, like a little arrogant or whatever it is, like I'm not trying to assume anything. And come to find out, they literally banned, like almost banned jab steps. So now they have to do cross jabs. So every time he made a move, he would do this cross jab step. And I was trying to figure out ways to kind of give him an edge. So light bulb comes off because as a trainer, you're always trying to figure out how to pivot in situations. So in that situation, light bulb comes off, and I think, okay, Mahmoud Abdaroof, shout out to Mahmoud, my
Hmm.
guy. Uh, he showed me a move where he would do a ball fake and keep the ball high. So I figured, okay, let me incorporate that into his movement because he catches the ball high. So instead of, catching it low, midsection, he catches it high and then he could shoot it right away. Or he could start from a high stance into a long jab. So that was one way I kind of figure out how to incorporate movement. And you kind of see things like that in the NBA too. Like D'Angelo Russell, he would do that catch high shot. Mahmoud, I would say, was the first one to actually do it, but then people started kind of creating their own variations. So you kind of see where you have to you have to pivot in every different league because otherwise you kind of just get stuck.
Okay, so the transition for European players coming into the NBA, I mean now, like say for example, you're saying this whole movement is banned over there,
Right.
like they're not using. But now you come to the NBA and say one of them get drafted, and like okay, now you can use the movement. So now you have to change your whole technique completely.
To an extent, yes. It's more like you played with heavy weights, then all of a sudden you have this freedom, like the weights are off.
Mm.
So there is an adjustment, but it's a quicker adjustment going that way than the other way. So like when you go play in France, a lot more contact, a lot more hitting, a lot more hand checks. So now you're just like, oh man, like how do I deal with all this context? Because players here complain a lot more. They're used to the refs calling the touch fouls for the most part. So when they come here and they can get to the rim and not get as much contact, it's freedom for sure.
It's what's so crazy is like when you look at the NBA, it almost seems like they're protecting their assets, and you look at other places because they don't have the same level of like eyes and visuals like the U.S. when it comes to the NBA does. And you look at people in like France, Germany, and all that. Even watching people from what was it, Australia had a basketball team. I was like, what? You know way y'all gonna win? Like we don't even watch any of this stuff. But just hearing you say that, it's having that freedom that you have in the U.S. It's like they're trying to protect their investment. Do you think that's what it is? Like they're trying to protect them, or they're just not pushing those guys to those limits?
Definitely protect them for sure. 100% agree with you. It's one of those things where when you can contain talent, you can increase the value of it.
Hmm.
So if you've seen a lot of these NBA players playing the street, all of a sudden the value's kind of lost. But the moment you kind of contain that value and you can only see it here, it goes up.
Do you think it's exciting and good for the sport right now? I mean, my personal view, I think it's phenomenal for the sport that these European nations and other countries, like you saw Sudan
Mm.
do well in the Olympics, like these countries are now really picking up their game in basketball. Is it better? Do you feel for the game, or do you think it's better if it's isolated only to America and what we do here?
I think basketball, like I want to see everywhere. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you guys know, I lived in Egypt for a year,
Yeah. You were saying, yeah.
and it was a lot of fun. Except basketball was tough because there was only like a couple of indoor basketball courts, and most of them were run down, and the nice ones were just locked up and only for games.
Hmm.
So to me, that was frustrating. For these guys, like basketball wasn't a necessity. So seeing it more spread out, I love to see that for sure.
Okay, that's what I mean. I think like that, especially that Sudan game. It was amazing to see this country, like out of nowhere. I think they lost by 1 point to the
It was
US
a
in that
close
So
game.
opening.
close.
It was a very very close game, and it was the guys played really well against all these superstars from LeBron to Steph to Durant, and it was. I think it was an eye opener for a lot of people.
But do you think they play good, or do you think the U.S. kind of let that guard down? And felt like we've won. How many times have they won? I mean, what would you say the U.S. have won the Olympics?
It,
The
it, it's it's tough because you're getting these NBA players. They're all superstars, and they're coming together. And when you have a team that's very talented, who's the guy to score? That affects
Mm,
chemistry.
okay.
And
yeah,
now you have Jason Tatum on the bench, and you're like, this guy just won the championship. He's on the bench, and people are counting how many cups of water and handshakes. I'm like, come on, guys. Like, there's a level of kind of like respect that you have to give to someone that's willing to do that at the same time.
Yeah.
And then Sudan coming out of nowhere and running some sets that offsetted the USA. They weren't ready for it. Game plan wasn't there. A lot of times you don't see these teams like what they're actually capable of. They don't even have game tape half the time.
mm-hmm.
So you're just like, we'll just play whatever.
Yeah.
Even the dream team, they were playing guys that were like, not talented, just there to, not that they weren't talented, but their full time was something else.
Yeah.
And they came together as a team. Like you saw, I don't know if you saw it recently where it just popped up, like where the dream team played against like a bunch of randoms for a couple of other teams overseas. That's who they faced back then. Now you're playing actual professional guys that play it for a living.
And a lot of them actually play in the NBA.
Yeah.
Yeah, for most of these countries, especially the European countries, France and Slovenia and Slovakia and all this, a lot of the players are here playing in the NBA, which is, I mean, that makes it more competitive already on the international stage. Yeah, and
And,
that will allow maybe a basketball World Cup. Imagine that.
yeah. And just to see some of these teams are creating new strategies on
Yeah.
how to win that I haven't seen before. So it's interesting to see how they're going away from the orthodox style of winning to this like random movements and kind of figure out how to manipulate a game differently. It's exciting because now it's changing how a player can win. Like Jokic, this guy is, you would never think that he's a basketball player just by his conditioning. Like, yeah, he's 7 foot tall, but this guy cannot really jump that high, cannot really run that fast. But yeah, he's an MVP 2 years in a row. Like, how the hell does he do it?
Mm.
You know?
No, yeah, you adapt, right? Evolve and adapt.
Adapt. But I think what's happening now is there are, I would say, hack styles that are being created. Like Dirk Nowitzki, when he was on the court, he'd do this spin move, step back, fadeaway shot. And as a 7 footer, it's hard to block somebody that's fading away, shooting that shot. So
He
he's doing that
mastered that.
every time.
Yeah, you mastered that.
And
shit.
so, like, how do you guard that? Like, you can't go over the top. He's fading away, kicking you. You got to go around the top. And if you do that, he's gonna pop back in and shoot it. And you've seen like now KD does that from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think the one person on the Mavs who actually like implement those is gonna be Luca. You see him do. He does a lot of time. He does like that fadeaway if it be close for two or even like three. But I want to get your take. So last time you were here, you mentioned the Timberwolves was going to be the one taking it. Were you surprised?
that
I'll
didn't
never
age very
forget.
well.
I'll
That didn't age
never
very well.
forget.
Were you
I don't
surprised to
know what
see?
happened to that team. There was some type of chemistry breakdown. I don't know. I looked at them like they're not the same team. Right after I made that conversation, let's
Yeah.
just say it was right after. Like
But
I
the
jinxed them.
Mavs, I mean, they went. I think the reason why the Mavs lost, they were just too tired.
You think
I think
so?
they were too tired because you got to think
They
that.
gave it all against the Timberwolves. They absolutely
But then again, you
demolished the
can't really say
Timberwolves.
that because Celtics also had to play. So it was like I don't know what really truly happened. They just like you
Well,
said.
we'll know. I think this season. Let's see if the Mavs do it again. You know, they're not a one season wonder. Then. You know?
Well, Celtics run sets, and like I don't know if you know about the Boston Celtics, like their
Mm-mm.
courts, like they were talking about it where there are a lot of dead spots on the court. So like you're dribbling the ball, all of a sudden it kind of like
It
loses
dies.
that it dies. The ball will like
What?
yeah. So they know their courts. They also knew Kyrie, like he kind of
Oh yeah, but
mentored a
he
lot of these
played for them.
guys.
Yeah, yeah.
So they broke his game down to a point where it made him inefficient. So that was I think the biggest thing. Plus the Mavs run a set that's just literally pick and roll up top key or on the wing, but it's a lot of pick and roll and it's a one on one. They don't really run passing the ball. And I would say, like, if you want to expose a team, you work the ball a little bit because you get a team tired and they're missing shots.
Mm.
And they don't really rotate. They didn't have enough rotation to stay with the Celtics. Celtics were rotating. They had guys in and out. Everybody knew their role. They didn't go outside their role. And Mavs missing a lot of shots.
But you think also the Celtics have a stacked bench too?
Yeah.
Yeah, this their whole roster is stacked.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Mavs only we got our starting our starting five
Yeah.
and just a few others.
I don't, when they traded for Drew Holiday, I was like, dang, that was such a genius move. And the Bucks, I understood what they were trying to do, but they gave away a lot for that team. They should have never traded with the Celtics. They should have traded for somebody else. There are teams that I would say you never want to trade with. The Celtics always have the scheme of win lose. They never want to give you something better in return.
Mm.
So I would never. That was one of the teams I would never trade with. I
So
hate
Drew
the Celtics.
Holiday going to the Celtics
Yeah.
is a bad move.
Yeah.
I mean, he played really good.
He did.
Is there any guys that you're eyeing right now when it comes to the NBA for you to like work with that you're looking forward to, mentoring them and trying to improve their game per se? Is there anyone that you're looking at right now?
Yeah, there's a few guys. I don't want to say it just yet because I don't want to
Don't
jinx it.
mention names.
Yeah. But there's a few guys that I'm really close to right now that I'm gonna get an opportunity. Inshallah.
When you look at like athletes of that caliber, right? We're talking NBA. That's like the upper echelon of if you're talking luxury vehicle, Bentley, well, not Maserati. Let's scratch that. Let's say Lambo. But how do you make those like minute changes to actually take them to that level? Because they have their ego, they already have the stardom. So for that person to come to you, what are you thinking in your head as a coach? Like, what do I need to do to take this person to where they can listen to me and actually make those changes?
Yeah, there's a quick sell. You have like 30 seconds to sell them, and you're trying to make sure that you're reading their body language. You're taking them through assessments. A lot of people don't realize this, but you have to fail them through assessments and like let them know like, hey, like this is a glaring hole, and you have to do that within like 30 seconds and 1 to 2 minutes of the drill. So the best thing to do is come in from top to bottom as opposed to like not known. So like if someone introduces you, you have a longer leeway to convince them. And then once you get to the point where they understand like, oh, this guy knows what he's talking about, then it's just easy because you'll see that switch off, and then they'll just like start doing the drill.
Hmm.
So you're assessing them at the same time. You're like kind of reading them, and then you're just trying to play it cool. Like, what's up, man?
So you're obviously your business and what you do is different than like a lot of other things. But how do you go about having again NBA players? Do they reach out to you? Or are you like reaching out to them? How do you scout for the person you're trying to work with? And do you single out like one person that you're trying to work with opposed to like a plethora of other options?
You're tapping into so many different networks. One is you're just trying to meet them. You heard that they were at a specific gym. You're trying to meet them there. Another one is DMs. Like you'll hit up bunch of guys that way. Another one is through people that you know through contacts. You'll hit them up, and you're just planting a ton of seeds and seeing which one sprouts first, and then you're just going and
Mhm.
going, and then you fail here, you fail there, you retweak it, move it. You know, the biggest thing is you don't want negative feedback to come around, so you do your best, and
Yeah, yeah.
players get replaced after a couple years. So, you're getting a lot of opportunities, believe it or not.
Have you ever thought of maybe you go and scout out up and coming players in high schools and colleges and so on?
Yeah, so I'm working with an NBA agency right now,
Mm-hmm.
and one thing, we just signed an OTE player,
Mm.
and so the next thing is, so after NIL deal, I'm trying to go train him, uh, and a few other guys too. So we signed a few high school players. Those guys, you got to make sure that you can see the path, because you don't want to invest that 4 to 8 years and then they dud out.
Okay, okay. So what you're looking for then? What type of student or kid are you looking for? Someone with the ambition, the yes, they must have the technical ability, but also it's a mental state too, right?
Yeah, like
There's a big
in the past, I would go towards the mental state first,
okay.
but now it's these coaches want the eye test first. So you got to make sure they pass the eye test first.
What's the eye test?
Like when I look at you, you're an NBA player.
Mm.
Is it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like you can kind of see the details. When I look at you right now, I know how far you are from being that NBA player. Like I can see that detail compared to previous NBA players at that age group.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, this guy has the potential to be an NBA player. And it's crazy to see the transformation between each stage, because when you see an NBA player, it's not too far off of like an elite college player.
Mm.
But when you see like a superstar NBA player, you know just by his look that he's an NBA superstar. Like,
Just by
oh,
the way
he's
his
different. His
movement.
mannerisms, his body, the way he carries himself, without like dribbling the ball, without even having to play, like, okay, this guy is somebody.
Do you think that's something that's like enveloped when they're young? Because when we met at the gym, you're letting me know like the whole 10,000 hours rule and stuff like that. That is best to have them at a certain age. Do you think that age plays a factor? And what exactly is that age for that person to have that stoic look of like, I'm gonna be the greatest,
Yeah.
like the MJ or the LeBron or the Kobe? What does that kind of look like?
So when you get them younger, the transition is a lot smoother. When you get them later, you have to it's like boot camp. You got to push them through and then see if they stack up at that point. So when you get them at like 10 or whatever, it's easier because that transition is going to be quicker. Not quicker, it's just going to be more progressive. So that's the first stage, and then you kind of just let them like put them in game situations and see how they stack up against the other 10-year-olds. And then you can kind of quickly see, because the development's a lot faster at that age. To be one of the better players at 10 is actually easier than when you're later on in life, because the degree of difference is so small as you get to the further level, and it's hard to read in between those lines. So when they're 10 and they're doing really good, you're like, all right, great. If they're doing pretty bad, like, bro, I think you gotta, try something else. You got time.
But that's young, man. 10 years old. I mean,
I'm not saying that 10 is not like you can't start them later, but 10 is the number where it's just right, like where they got to be able to score a little bit, they got to be able to do some things. They still have leeway to get better, and that's why I'm saying 10 is the best age
yeah,
group.
yeah.
If you start them younger, you could burn them out, because at younger age, there's always a few select, but younger age it's tougher because you want them to have fun,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
it's hard to have fun and give instructions and see what they're really trying to do.
Hmm.
So at some point they'll hit 10, you start them with basketball, they're really good, and then I don't want to do basketball anymore at
So
at 10.
I have this question in my head. It's gonna come off pretty hard.
Is it has to do with Hitler again?
No, it doesn't have to do with
You
Hitler.
sure?
You don't have to worry
Okay.
about it. You don't have to worry
Okay.
about
Oh
killing
god.
a ton of people. Question is, you have a son. I don't know how old your son is.
10.
10 years old. Does he play basketball?
He started playing basketball
Okay.
Yeah.
just this past few months.
So let's say your son right now has a knack for it. He's amazing. You know, you see it in your eyes. Like, man, I feel like my little swimmer became like the best basketball player right now, right? But then he hits that age where you have to have that talk where he's not really excelling and other kids are excelling. How do you break that down from a coach standpoint and a dad standpoint?
Yeah. I
Are
mean,
you gonna be a dad or are you gonna be a coach at that time?
listen, I already had to talk with him. So if I could have the
10.
talk with him already at 10, I think that's going to be easy for me, you know?
Okay.
But you kind of know who you're dealing with. So I know, like, ultimately, he's not the basketball person. I just want him to understand basketball because it would help me and him bond better. So he's picked up a lot of little tricks. Like the other day, I taught him the hezzy, and he's like, "I don't understand what I'm doing." I'm like, "Just keep doing it. Just trust me." So he's just like, he just came out of. I dropped him off at Lifetime, and he's like, "Yeah, I just broke a bunch of kids' ankles." I'm like, "That's what I like to hear."
Hey. But I mean, as you being like this coach, like, do you just let him fall in love with it himself, or are you helping him like better his game from what it sounds like?
So when he was 4, actually when he was 2, I used to put basketball hoops all over the place, trying to subliminal, the messaging.
You will be a basketball player.
Yeah. He did not really take to it
Yeah.
as much as I wanted him to. So I was like, all right, I gotta chill out. Like, I'm gonna force him to do this. So he went through soccer and baseball, and he's like, Dad, I think I want to try basketball.
How was that moment for you hearing your son?
Did you see that Malcolm in the Middle thing? And he's talking to his dad, and his dad turns to him. He goes, once you go on the path, you can't turn back. I swear to God, that's exactly the same experience I had. And he's like, yeah, I know. I was like, you can't turn back, right?
That's hilarious.
So it was great.
Okay, you got excited about it. That's brilliant, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, with mine, I tried soccer with the big two, and it's like, okay, it's not for you.
Yeah.
Let's try something else. Yeah, so
My
they win.
miss, I don't know what she would want when we do have kids. But my thing is, I've seen fighting. I don't know if I want my kids to do it per se, like at that level. But if they want to, I mean, you have to support your kids at the end of the day, right? You got
Like on the court, fighting on the court, or
No,
No,
I'm
no,
saying
no,
like if they want to
MMA.
pursue fighting as like their
Oh.
living.
Jiu-jitsu,
Because
MMA.
she's like, okay, football. If they want to do football, that's a no. Like she doesn't even want to pee-wee all that. No, because just the likelihood of getting CTE and stuff like that. She's like, no. And I was like, okay, what else? She's like, well, they can do any other sport, but then you look at soccer. Well, soccer, if your legs go out, you're done. Basketball, there maybe it could be the same thing because you're sprinting up and down the court, but with soccer though, like everything is your lower extremities. So if your ankle, your MCL, ACL is done, you're done, right? So now I was like, okay, well, swimming, I mean, that's just a college thing, right? You can't become a professional swimmer per se. You could be a professional.
Unless you become Michael Phelps.
Well, even the
2.0.
Olympics, they don't make a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's the
Mm.
craziest thing,
Mm.
to have something that is known on a worldly level that everyone could come together and like cohesively say, we support X, Y, and Z. Our country is in this thing as like, that's the only time I think the whole world is at a unison.
Mm.
But to have these top of the top athlete not make any money,
No, so they make sponsorship money
but
because no other federation's gonna pay them. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the thing. It's not like, so even if you take individual sports. So let's take tennis for example, right? So you got Alcaraz and Zverev and all these great these up and coming tennis players now that have to emulate what the great three have done:
Yeah.
Federer, Novak, and Nadal. But it's such a sport where, okay, you see them earn millions. They win a Grand Slam, they earn millions and so on. But we don't take into account, unlike a team sport, they have to pay for their own physios, their own dietitians, their own trainers, their own. Whilst in a team sport like basketball or football or soccer, the team pays for all of that. That doesn't come out of your pocket.
Mm.
Yeah, so it's very interesting to see that these athletes that go down those paths of a singular sport where it's not a team sport, and they do make it. Like take Michael Phelps for example. Michael Phelps made money. Yes, he's one of the greatest Olympians to ever live, but just with his sponsorship deals and things that people wanted Michael Phelps's face everywhere,
Yeah, yeah.
so he's gonna make money on that.
What I'm saying is you're bringing that person brought attention to the U.S. for X amount of
Mm.
months, years, whatever it may be, right?
Yeah.
So you gave them if without that platform of the Olympics, which again everyone is watching over the world. Doesn't matter where you're at. You're talking about the Olympics, right? Because
Mhm.
that's the only thing where your nation can be in. So if you're in that, you would think the Olympics would be the one paying you at least some portion, not the endorsement, because
I think they paid them. Well, what they got for the gold
they said
medal?
they don't make anything.
No, 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 no.
Supposedly they say they don't make anything.
No.
Uh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It
What
depends
is
on the
30?
country. It depends on the country. You
Yeah,
get it
but
from the
what is
country.
30 if you got it like you just said, your trainer,
I mean,
your
you got
nutritionist?
about 8 gold medals.
They say I can't watch a bunch of people swimming in a pool in that hot, room. So like, that's me.
Swimming isn't your thing?
No, I like swimming. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
like watching people swim.
That makes sense.
I mean, I'll just get I'm gonna get hated for this, but like, I'd rather just watch fish in a tank, aqua tank,
Yeah.
as opposed to seeing people like, do this, because you can't really see what's happening underneath.
That is
All
true.
the actions underneath.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're watching over on TV, you can see the camera, the guy's like chilling under the water.
All over, yeah.
Y-
You
yeah.
can see every angle.
Yeah. You don't see the facial gestures, like how they're struggling. You just see like afterwards, they're just looking up, looking at the time.
You know what I didn't understand about this Olympics is the breakdancing. How the
that was hilarious.
hell can that be a sport?
Bro, it's okay. So it's
Explain that
all
to me.
defense. It's like skateboarding. When I grew up, that was my love. Like till this day.
Yeah, but skateboarding is, I mean, okay, we get it a little bit.
But people didn't understand it though. So it was like one of those boogeyman, like you never spoke about it. It's like
Okay.
almost UFC. When people, I was listening to Joe Rogan yesterday, he was stating when the UFC became what it is now, prior to, people thought it was like barbarians fighting for, food.
And a
trying to-
joke too.
Yeah, it was different. Like people never
Mhm.
understood what exactly that sport is. Skateboarding was the same thing. When I was in school and I was skating, I got called all kinds of names. I'm not gonna say them on the on the podcast, but like you just got so ridiculed. You were it was almost like, why are you doing this thing?
Yeah.
Like you're on the
Mhm.
wood, you're pushing the wood. Like what the heck? Like that doesn't even look fun or entertaining. People want to see you play football, get hit on a basketball court, shooting a three. Like that's interesting to people, right? So no one really got the nuance of skateboarding unless you're a skater. So with being a b-boy, is the same thing. People don't understand like the amount of effort. It's just like playing basketball or playing football.
Of course,
or,
yeah,
But
Yeah.
as a casual, if you don't understand it, you don't do it. You won't really appreciate it or understand like to spin on your head. Now that girl from what was she from Australia?
Australia.
Bro,
That
she was
they roasted her,
bro,
man.
but she looked so pathetic though. Like that's why. Like I was like, bro, this is something my 10-year-old godson be doing. Like, and I'm looking at him like, bro, get off the floor. Like, what are you doing? But there's a grown woman on the national stage.
And
Doing
she
something
went,
absurd.
she
Did you
went
hear
full
the story
on,
about her?
No,
No.
what
It
happened?
was crazy. She like has her husband is on the board of like
Australia
Australian.
Olympic board. Or
Yeah, yeah. And so he got her in, and she wanted to execute technical moves as opposed to like actual moves. And if you watch it like fully through, you're like, all right, it wasn't that bad. But the way they cut her scenes out, I was like, oh my God, they roasted her so bad.
That's crazy.
She got a 0.
Is that what happened? She got a
Yeah.
really bad score, right?
Yeah, no, I think she got a 0.
Yeah. She was like
I
the
don't
worst
know.
contestant.
Yeah, because I mean, you look at breakdancing, like it's the flair, right? You're doing all these crazy flips or like spin that most people can't really see the body contortioning in like that way, right? I don't know how to spin on my head.
Yeah.
I'll probably throw up. You spin
I'm
me
into
around right
swing
now,
dancing, bro. What I've been watching a lot recently is swing dance.
bro. That thing is hard. Have you been to Red River?
Hey, bro, I want to really do swing
Bro, go
dancing.
to Red River. Red River. So again, I never
Love it.
understood nothing about country. I wear a cowboy hat. That's about it. That's my
Okay,
thing.
okay.
That thing look fire on me. But when it comes to the boots and the swing dance or maybe line dancing,
Yeah.
there's an art to it and it's beautiful, bro.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Red River up, the area gets a little wild, but man, when you see people who actually do swing and line dancing, you appreciate it.
I'm telling you, I appreciate it a lot. It's only the
Go
only
to
thing
Red
on my
River.
TikTok feed recently. I love
I
it.
can see like,
Yeah. No, it's not that.
Is that?
No, swing dancing is completely actually. Dawood, you need to play swing dancing on this podcast when it comes out. It's bloody awesome. I love it.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
What
It's
made you
something
fall in
else.
love with it? What about it like capture your attention?
It's just the movement.
Huh.
It's just the movement of the twirls and the different things, and it's
Talking about like footloose stuff. Where they're
exactly
Like, okay.
something like that.
Do
It's
you-
pretty cool.
So, you talking about that dancing, right? So, Lomachenko, his dad put him in ballet prior to him becoming the boxer that we see now. Do you ever emulate anything when you're teaching, like some of the people that you teach and having them perfect? Do you ever take anything from like dancing
Absolutely.
into that? Like, what type of dance do you look at choreograph wise that you implement? I mean, no one really look at basketball and think dancing will be a part of it. So you
So
saying that?
there were a couple of studies done in 2018, 2019 on knee valgus and its relationship to ACL tears. And they said that when you have knee valgus, you can increase ACL tears by up to 30%.
Wow.
So not having that strength and that structure in your legs makes a huge difference. So doing things like curtsy squats, for example, will help build that strength. And working on muscle groups like the hamstrings. You don't normally work on that stuff in basketball.
But when you're dancing or you're doing other movements, you do.
Yeah, and figuring out how to make sure that you're developing these movements that kind of emulate game situations. So yeah, like dancing, you're gonna hit a lot of balance movements to kind of, you can't just like if you're like trying to shift, you're gonna see like, all right, you have some weakness somewhere. It's similar, but with dancing, you kind of figure out a little faster because it has to go to tempo. Whereas basketball, it's not tempo based; it's more cadent based. So it's more based on you dribbling the basketball and equating that movement together with lower body, upper body. So that's going to take a little more time to identify. But then when you're able to add these movements, workouts, drills specific to that, you're gonna actually develop these players and help prevent injury.
How is your mindset when you're meeting someone who's like a superstar? Let's say, for instance, you got the opportunity to work with LeBron James. I'm speaking that into the universe.
Appreciate it.
And you get that opportunity, right? How does your mind switch from dad, from husband to like coach?
It's quick, man. I don't even know.
Really?
It is really quick. Like, and it's like Predator, where he switches between different like heat sensors.
Like that.
That's what it's like. That's what it feels like. All of a sudden, boom! It's like that. You just switch to. It's like you push a button almost.
Really?
It's that quick. Yeah.
Wow. Because they talk about it with like fighters. It goes, some of these guys are like the nicest people outside, and then they enter the octagon, and they're like, like, damn, I can't see myself going red like that, bro. Like that just.
It's crazy, man.
It happens. You put yourself in that mindset, and you just have to do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like us.
It's
Like at home, you're a husband and a father. As soon as you enter the doors of the office, you go into this mode.
I go into clowning people. That's what I do when I come here. I start roasting people, bro. That's my thing. I'm like, bro, what do you got going on? What are you wearing? I bring humor to bring people closer. That's my.
I like
thing.
that.
I like that. You put a smile on our faces.
I try my best.
Yeah, good.
I hope sometimes y'all don't get mad at me, especially when I start saying wild
Maher,
stuff.
when you came the last time, right? Let's pivot here. Right. When you came the last time, finding your feet in Dallas, we spoke about the book that you wrote and so on. What is your next steps? What's planned now? What you're doing with being in Dallas now? Looking to work with some new youngsters and so on. Where do you see now your focus for the next 5 years or 10 years?
Yeah. So right now, I'm working with an NBA agency.
Yeah.
It's been going pretty good. We're just trying to figure out logistics for that, like how to train them, where to train them, and now I'm looking to open up a facility. So that's my main focus right now, and once I have that established, it's gonna be a lot easier to get people in and out. And then I've been just networking with a bunch of people, so just creating a lot of buzz as well. So that's what's going on right now, and it's been pretty good so far. Getting investors uh, to join in and stuff like that.
And how has this changed your trajectory or your why of doing what you want to do? Is it giving you more ambition now to double down on these things now with the new opportunities coming about? Or I mean, where's your mindset right now on that?
Yeah, it's great because when you can start to see the movement of where you're going, it
Mm-hmm.
becomes you become more calm, more and have more clarity. So I definitely see where I'm going now a little clearer. Like every time it gets a little clearer, more specific, and I get to see, okay, maybe it wasn't over here, but it's here now, and that's why I'm like getting more and more excited. And just I was talking to Mahmoud Abdur's agent Hanif, and he's signed a bunch of clients, and he was telling me like, hey, like we're about to bust through the seams and we both feel it. So like it's good to see that both of us on par with each other, because like we pushed each other. Like he gave me advice, I gave him a little advice, try to back him up, stuff like that. Like it's good to have that. So yeah, like it's exciting.
Just building, I think, strong connections and a network
Yeah.
now to continue on this journey of yours.
Yeah, like before, when I was in other areas, I felt like I was around people that didn't see my vision. And
Mm-hmm.
out here, people get my vision and they're pushing me in a way that keeps me guided and, humble at the same time,
How is that? Being the person, because I mean, prior to you were running, it was like a one man show from what
Mhm.
it sounded like. So, what is it every single time a entrepreneur gets someone else to be in the corner, kind of giving him advice? Like, how do you deal with that when you have someone else giving you their inputs and things? Like, do you take it? Do you take it as constructive, like advice, or do you take it like, man, I'm gonna still do my own thing?
I always stay open to hearing criticism especially when it starts to become patternized. When I hear it enough times, I'm like, there's something there, and I have to be objective enough to say like, hey, okay, I've heard it enough times, or why do they say it this way, and then just put it in a bag or move forward. But I say like the saying goes, you ask a millionaire how to make $1 million. So, those are the people that I at the end of the day will take the advice from.
Hmm.
When it comes to specific things that I've seen successful people like in their niche do it. And it's hard to see someone in a different niche give you advice because it might not be apples to apples. Sometimes it'll be apples to oranges, but you're trying to figure out like, okay, there is some type of advice here that I can kind of extract.
Hmm. So, with this new path that you're on, is it mainly focusing on that age group of like 10 and up, or are you guys starting at like the high school level going to college?
So I've been working with a lot more pros recently. Once I get the facility, I can do that a little more
Okay.
consistently.
That's cool, man.
Yeah, yeah.
Congratulations.
Thanks,
Yeah,
man.
we're
That's awesome.
looking forward to this. I think being on the journey with you and is uh is exciting. I mean, earlier when we were talking about finding your facility, I mean, straight away some ideas just popped up of how you can create different revenue streams and an incubator style ecosystem,
Yeah,
as you say. And I mean, it's super exciting stuff.
yeah.
And I think we wish you the best going forward in your endeavors and your journey. And I think we're grateful to be a part of it, Mar. Yeah.
Was this
Appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
was this something that you saw when you first started? Like, was it always the route that you felt yourself going back on, or is it something that is like a new idea that you just stumbled upon and wanted to?
It's always been there. Uh, the problem with being in the wrong area is you're not vibrating at the frequency that allows you to be who you are. So even the way here just feels like I'm not forcing anything. Things are just happening. Whereas before it was you're very strategic. You're just like, okay, can't go here, can't go there. Okay, you're thinking logically and stuff like that, and it's a lot of like, okay, like making mistakes. Here it's just you just be yourself, and things come along.
I must tell you, this weekend I thought about you.
Yeah.
Just yeah. Last comment on this podcast. So
Oh man, it's already over, man. I
it's
thought we just
already
started,
over.
man. Crazy.
So Sam and I went to New York this weekend. and
Sam who?
my wife.
Okay.
Yeah. And we were walking. We walked like Lower Manhattan, and then we walked towards the Hudson River, and then we saw all the basketball courts, and people were playing basketball. And you were the first person that I thought of.
I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
because in the last podcast, you were like, I used to go to all these different courts and play and verse all these guys, and so it was like Sam and I were walking, and Sam remembered the podcast, and she said, "Didn't it remind you of Maher and talking about going to all these different courts and playing ball?" So it was. I thought about you.
I appreciate that,
That's
man.
cool.
Yeah, man, it was pretty cool. Thank you, Maher. Appreciate you being on the
Man, that's
podcast.
it,
Man.
man.
You got
Then
more
we
to
just
say?
got-
We can keep going. I can keep going.
I got work to do.
That's you walking through the door. Now you got the work dad mode
Yeah.
going on. That's what it is. I gotta steal that energy. Those are the only one thing I wanted to ask before
Yeah,
we
what's
close out. From what you stated, you say you lean into your fears. How are you dealing with that now with all this stuff that's coming about? Are you fearful? Are you
That's an
like,
interesting question.
Mm.
where's your state of
Hmm.
mind right now as this whole thing is unraveling?
It's I'm realizing I'm just getting more excited. Uh it's understanding mastery at the end of the day. Like what is it that you need to master? And so whether you're, a surgeon with a scalpel, there's mastery in a movement that has to happen regardless of what you do. So I remember like what in the Dark Knight, Tom Hardy, he made 2.5 million for 22 minutes of screen time. And I'm like, oh, bro, like that's crazy. I mean, it was amazing. Like 2.5 million in 22 minutes, and that's like $114,000 per minute. But he didn't get paid for the minute. He got paid for like the in between, right? He got paid for what he did, the acting, right? And so for me as a trainer, like my biggest thing is I have to take these players from wasted movement to quality movement to optimized movement, and I have to do that with their in between because they don't get paid by the steps, right?
Hmm.
They get paid by what they do in the in between. So when you take a player and you're trying to develop them, I know it kind of went off the topic, but I like uh, you're taking them through these two states, the static state and the dynamic state, right? And in the static state, it's thinking, it's planning, it's developing, but you're still. Whereas the dynamic state, you're taking them through these movements. So that's my job. I have to make sure that I help them master one movement at a time through each stage and develop them so that they can get that bag. And that's my job, you know?
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Boys and girls,
It's go time.
It's go time. Ooh, I love it.
thanks for watching today's episode of It's Go Time. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and leave comments on all of our channels. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, we're on YouTube, and don't forget our Instagram and Facebook pages as well.